Well, Hamilton police are investigating a physical confrontation between opposing groups at the Hamilton Pride Festival this weekend. Now, this happened in the middle of a park away from the main festivities. Authorities say they believe a religious group, some protesters wearing yellow vests, and some Pride attendees were involved. Minor injuries were reported. Well, our next guest says events like these are reflective of a change in the political tide. Olivia Nuama is the executive director of Toronto Pride, and she joins us here in studio. And, very timely discussion, because as Hamilton marked their Pride yesterday, next Sunday is going to be the big Toronto Pride Parade. And certainly there's the Trans March on Friday night, the Dyke March on Saturday, then the big Pride Parade on the Sunday. So I want to begin with your reaction. You leading the organization that is planning Toronto's Pride celebrations, as you see what happened in Hamilton, what's your reaction?
My reaction is one of sadness, but it is also one of familiarity, actually. This is not the first time we have come here. In fact, this particular religious group protests our prides every year. And they go around to each Canadian Pride doing their best to stoke the sense of homophobia, actually. And they come into our prides to do this. And I suppose in Hamilton yesterday, Pride participants decided that they would fight back.
Not the first time we've seen this on both sides, though, because, was it just last week there was a confrontation that happened at Toronto's Church and Wellesley community, and that is the so-called heart of Toronto's queer community. And there was a similar confrontation. So I'm wondering, why do you think we're seeing more incidents like this happening now, or are we just talking about it more now?
No, I think that the political tides have changed in the last couple of years. Rhetoric has become much more heated. This notion of a kind of, quote, political correctness, end of quote, that allowed us to kind of paper over the cracks of these sorts of events have come to the fore. And actually what I would argue is that over the last couple of years, I think public policy and politics has created an environment that has made it quite favorable for all sorts of people to decide that other people don't deserve to exist, live their lives daily. We see it all over America with white people calling the police on black people living their daily lives. We actually saw it in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, where, again, an alt-right group protested Detroit's Pride. And of course, we know here in Toronto, we have a Dyke March happening Saturday afternoon, and we know that there's an alt-right march organized at the exact same time. So we have a lot to be concerned about.
So if you are concerned about these types of incidents from happening, how does that affect your planning for Pride events?
Well, this is what makes it incredibly difficult, because we have, our first priority is to protect every festival goer enjoying Pride Toronto. And so that means we have to increase security. But of course, when we increase security, it makes some members of our community feel unsafe. So ultimately, it's a kind of irony of feeling unsafe when you increase security and feeling unsafe when you don't have security, because the public or some members of the public have decided that this is the perfect opportunity to explain why you shouldn't exist. And so either way, we have a lot to struggle with. But what we know, and what we've known every year that Pride has existed, is that the police have always ensured to be robust in their planning, and they cover all of these incidents. They plan for them all. We also are increasing our security quite heavily. So between the two of us, we pretty much promise that our Pride will be a Pride that will not be infected by this disease.
Well, what's interesting is, and perhaps sadly so, that as we see these confrontations taking place, it also does underline the fact that Pride is more than a parade.
Absolutely. And so when people ask what is Pride and why we continue to call Pride a protest, it's because of the events we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks. There is a significant problem when it comes to full acceptance of the LGBTQ2+ community in Canada and all over the world. And what we're starting to see now is alt-right groups coming onto and into our events, onto where we are celebrating and deciding that this is the perfect place to tell us that we shouldn't exist. This is exactly why Pride is a protest and not a celebration. And until these incidents stop, it will continue to be a protest, and celebrating will be second to that.